Okay, team. So we are going to talk a little bit more about structure detection. I've been showing you just a grab bag of stuff, right, to give you an idea of the many methods that are out there, and I don't know where we'll be in 10 years, 20 years with that sort of thing. But we're definitely into the phase of load your network into something, push a button, make it look pretty, right? So that's fine. People do that a lot, but you should know what you're doing, and maybe you'll improve the whole thing in some way. So we're going to finish that. I've been blowing things up down here, so there's some stuff that's not working, but I will get that out for you. We are going to move on to, I know I'm jumping around, we're going to move on to happiness, and some start of the stuff on stories that I've been talking about, discussing. So that's going to take a long time, I think, to get through. One thing I want to build up here will be these categorical data shifts, is what I'm calling them. But the idea is that they'll start with word shifts, so we'll talk about that. The idea is you have two texts that are different in some way. It could be their entropy measures or happiness like we have here. It could be any sort of measure. But it could be two forests, it could be two ecologies, it could be two portfolios of funds, it could be all sorts of things. So I think this is a pretty general, really a visualization technique. So I'm going to explain that at some point, but I'm building up the notes for that. And I think it's a big deal. All right. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about structure detection. I think we got to link-based stuff. So let me just get into that. I have some fun things to show you as well. All right. Right. Okay, so the idea was we got to, I think we just got to this, but again, it's this idea that things can be overlapping. This is a word network, so word networks are fun things to look at. Just take a thesaurus. We actually have work we're trying to bring to fruition from the historical thesaurus, the Oxford English Dictionary, which is pretty cool. So what we have there is 1,000 years, so it's really the second millennium. It goes back to the Old English, which is of course quite different, and then you have this growing thesaurus. So, and it's all categorized, right? So how do these different kind of, how has meaning space been colonized by the English language over time? And what you actually see in the end is in the last 100 years, leisure has become the biggest category, right? So we've filled out that space with just an unbelievable array of words that are really quite specific, like rollerblades, things like these. There are just all sorts of words that we've added. The problem with that work, and it came out of POX, was it was a great bit of work, but we accidentally scraped the site, and they didn't like that. So anyway, we got put in the sin. We didn't realize that they had a very bad terms of service thing. It just wasn't even sort of there. It was kind of milquetoast. And after all this work, we looked at it and like, oh, that sort of says something. And I wrote to them and got kind of a bad reply. And then we were put in a sin bin for 6 months, something like that in the end. So we had to wait. And then so in January, I'm like, please let us use the data. So hopefully that will come out soon. It's really, really nice work. So Fletcher Hazelhurst, who was here, and he was a captain of the cross-country team. Great kid. But I felt very bad because he was completely honest scrapage, but we got into trouble. But it should be a super interesting paper. Anyway, maybe I can talk about it in this as we get to talking about language a little more. So, right, this is work by Bagro, and this was when these three characters were all postdocs in Barabazi's lab, and they weren't complaining about scale freeness or anything like that. They were just doing things, and they wrote this paper together, and it appeared in Nature. They did very well for themselves. But it's the same kind of idea, and I don't have to go into it too much, but they really started to think about links as being the core reason, right? So links have colors to them in the sense that two nodes are connected for some reason, but then nodes themselves may be kind of multicolored, right? So that they have the different kinds of connections. That's a whole thing. All right, that's good. Yeah, tons of stuff.